Hey everybody, this is Rustin with Metalholic and the Examiner. With me today, Kid Dynamite, the master himself, Steve Whiteman of KIX. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. You know, it's interesting when they said, hey, KIX is getting ready to do interviews. I said, I've got to talk to Steve because when I first started doing rock journalism, it was back in the late 80s, and the first person that I interviewed that wasn't a local band was Steve Whiteman of KIX.
Really?
On your tour bus outside the Omni in Oakland, California.
Wow.
So here we are 25 years later. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But
we're kind of like ticks. We won't go away.
Well, and a lot of great stuff is happening again for KIX right now. The brand new Live in Baltimore CD DVD just came out. As a matter of fact, you guys recorded it at the Ram's Head in Baltimore a couple years ago, I believe, and then you went back, I think, just a week or two ago and did the release party at the Ram's Head.
Yeah, that room has turned into our new Baltimore Hammerjacks. I don't know if you're familiar with Hammerjacks, but it was like the club on the East Coast for a while, and we were like the house band. So when they tore that down to make the Ravens parking lot, the next natural segue was the Ram's Head. It was a big, beautiful room, state-of-the-art production, nice big stage, holds a couple thousand people, so it worked perfectly. And when we decided to shoot the DVD there, you know, we had no idea how it was going to turn out, but the guys that shot it were professional and great at what they were doing, and they blew us away with their efforts. So it was too good to just let go by the wayside, so we worked diligently to get this thing out to the people.
Well, yeah, that was my understanding, was you guys weren't necessarily looking to do something like this, but these guys approached you and said, hey, we're willing to do this, and we're willing to do it for free, and it turned out excellent.
I think they just had belief in themselves. Apparently, I was a little misinformed. I've done several interviews, and I think I may have slighted these guys. They actually had been around and had done several major projects. And they approached Mark. Mark, our bass player, pretty much handled this. That's why I was sort of out of the loop. And the only time I really saw them is when I showed up for gigs, and they were prepping for it. So when I'm at a gig, I'm in gig mode. You know, I'm preparing for the show, warming up and stuff like that. So these guys were coming around and doing interviews, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do an interview. But I didn't really piece it all together until it was all done, and Mark started showing us clips, and was like, this is really, really good.
Well, you know, one of the things that I love about Live in Baltimore is how raw and powerful it is. And one of my friends reviewed it, and she said, you know, I can't get into it. It's too rough. I said, what are you looking for? Something that's overdubbed and overpolished to death? It's a live album. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. Live, raw, KIX in the moment.
Exactly. That's the only way that I felt it should have been done. I mean, anybody can go in and polish a turd and, you know, make it shine, but you know, if we had areas of the show where it wasn't perfect, or, you know, Z chords or bad vocal notes, then so be it. That's what you get during a live show.
Well, and ironically enough, and this sort of segues into something I wanted to ask you about anyway, one of the more recent live albums that I heard the same thing about was the Hailstorm live album they did in Philly, and for me it was the exact same thing. It really caught them in their element the way they are, and in large part, Hailstorm's popularity has a lot to do with Lzzy's incredible vocals, which I understand you had a hand in.
Yeah, Lzzy came to me when she was probably about 13 or 14 years old, and I was teaching vocal training up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and she came around with her mom and dad, and, you know, they had already determined what they were going to do with their lives. They were going to be in music. So I started working with Lzzy for about a year, and she had all the tools, she had all the stuff. She just didn't quite know how to put the power behind it and how to protect herself and things like that. So that's what we worked on together, and it really paid off because she's amazing.
Yeah, whatever you did, thank you, because as much as I love KIX for when I first discovered you, I'm loving Hailstorm the same way now, and a lot of other people are. So rumor has it that you're talking with Frontiers about potentially doing a new studio album after all this time.
Yeah, that was sort of that was the bug in the ear deal. I mean, you know, they wanted to get on board with this DVD and live CD, and they also really are pushing for a new KIX studio album, which my band Funny Money was just in the process of beginning a new CD. So we just kind of held off on that so we could have the material lying around. Our bass player Mark has been writing, Brian Forsyth has been writing, so we've got a lot of material that we're going through right now that we want to make sure that going to be worthy of what KIX fans would expect. So that's what we're doing right now, and if we can come up with 10, 12 strong tunes, then we'll try and get something out next year.
Right, which is going to be an interesting dynamic because in the past history of KIX, former bass player Donnie Purnell wrote or co-wrote a lot of the stuff with like Bob Halligan, Taylor Rhodes.
Right.
So this would really be you guys putting it all together as a new KIX record. How do you think that will change the dynamics of the KIX sound?
Well, even though Donnie was the main songwriter, we all still wrote, but his stuff was just strong, and he was the leader of the band, the controller of the band. So getting songs past him was quite a chore. So when we were always proud of the records that we made with his music on them, and since then, since leaving KIX in '95, having that freedom to write showed that all of us could actually write. We just weren't given the opportunity. And we're trying to get Taylor Rhodes involved in this because Taylor was a producer on the Hotwire album, and
right.
I think it's important to have somebody that worked with the sound, worked with the band, that would have an outside opinion of what he feels would really make it a strong KIX album. So it's all still in the planning process at this point.
Right, and you guys have written some indelible tunes over the years that, and you're one of those, you're sort of like the East Coast version of what I call Y&T on the West Coast. You're one of these awesome bands that everybody knows and loves when they hear them, but you just never got to that level where everybody was, packing the arenas, and I just don't know why, because you were phenomenal. You still are, as the new live album clearly points out.
Well, we weren't a radio-friendly band. A lot of the other bands did get a lot of songs on the radio. We were lucky to get 2 or 3 songs on the radio. Our strength was our live performance, and that's what kept us alive for 18 years. So, and it wasn't because the music wasn't good; it just wasn't radio-friendly for some reason.
Right, which is just insipid because it really is. And
yeah.
You guys sort of broke into some of that. Unfortunately, it was on the strength of the ballad, the anti-suicide ballad off of Blow My Fuse, but that entire album was phenomenal. It's probably, I don't know, for me, it's probably your seminal album to this point, although I loved Hotwire, Midnight Dynamite, I love them all, but that one, every track just boiled over with energy, and that really sort of got you out there doing a lot of arena tours.
Yeah, that was definitely the big one. That got us out of the clubs and into the arenas and on a real tour, opening for real bands and going to the UK and going to Japan. So, that one really busted it wide open. And that's the first one that Atlantic really paid attention to, and that's why it broke. And Atlantic's got this magic button. They all have them, the magic money button. And when they push that magic money button, things happen.
Well, it's funny. One of the greatest relationships I have in my life I owe to KIX, because this was back when webcams first came out and everything, and I'm talking to this woman online, and behind me is my massive wall of CDs, and the first thing she keyed on is, "You're a KIX fan?" That was it. You guys were the aphrodisiac, so thank you.
All right, cool. That's good to hear.
So, Monsters of Rock, you guys are going to be lighting that thing up again. The Monsters of Rock cruise, you're going to be doing it again next year, I understand?
Yeah, we did it this past February, and it was an overwhelming success. It was so well organized for having so many bands involved, and so many. It just sounded like it was just going to be an awful ordeal, but it was such a pleasure to do that. The fans were really polite. They would approach you on the ship, and they get your picture taken with you, and they showed up at all the shows, and there was so much going on all the time, and it worked like a charm. So. We hadn't even left the boat, and they said, "You guys are back next year, right?" And we said, "Absolutely."
Nice. Now, I got to ask you, Yeah has always been one of your great songs. You can't do a live show without it. Closes it out and everything. And it started out as a long song to begin with, but it has sort of turned into your In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida track. It's taken on a life of its own. How did that happen?
It surely has. I'm sick to death of the song, but you're right. We can't get out of town without playing that song in front of people. In the beginning, before we even recorded that song, I used to do these stupid raps in that same spot every night, but every night they were different. It was whatever was on the top of my head. And it so happened that a cassette, a board tape that we sent to Atlantic as a demo, because we sent them a studio tape, and they wanted to hear some live stuff, so we sent them a board tape. And the rap that I did that's on the record was on that cassette tape that we sent them, and they thought it was hysterical, and they said, when we make the record, that has to be the rap, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So they had to have somebody actually print the whole thing out, and I read that off a piece of paper. And so, and months after that, I can't just do the same thing night after night after night. It bores me stiff. So I've embellished, and it's grown, like you said, into a God of Vita type song. It's gotten ridiculously long, but it's funny, and it brings all the people in, and they seem to enjoy it.
Now, you guys covered on the live album something from every album except the last album you did, Show Business. Did you intentionally leave something off of that? Is it just not a strong album for you in your mind, or it just didn't make it, nothing made it into the set that night?
It just didn't make it into the set that night. We felt that album was really good, and it was recorded under really hard circumstances. Both of Donnie's parents had been in a major car accident, so he was hardly even around for much of the recording and mixing of that album. And we have played a lot of stuff off of that record in previous times. For no particular reason, just that night there was nothing off that album. And it wasn't our strongest selling album. When we play outside the area, it's a conscious effort to not include too much of that record because it didn't do very well outside of our immediate area.
Right. So what's going on with Funny Money now? Because obviously you're doing KIX again and everything, but you and Mark and I think Jimmy are all in Funny Money, are you not?
Right. Yep, and we've got a guitar player named Dean Kramer who does a great job. KIX has become it's turned into the priority where Funny Money used to be my priority, and KIX was like a pleasure to go out and do 8-10 shows a year, but now it's turned into 25 and 30 shows a year. So now Funny Money's kind of taken the back seat, and KIX has become the priorities. But we're still out playing. When KIX isn't playing, Funny Money plays every weekend. So we haven't put it down, but it definitely has taken a back burner to what KIX is doing.
Right. Now, I've been trying to actually find Funny Money CDs and stuff, and I can't find them anywhere. Where can fans go get them if they haven't heard them yet?
I don't know where you can get the CDs anymore. We honestly haven't released one in probably 4 years. That's why I was I was hoping to get one out last year, and then this whole project came up with Frontier, so I just, I put it on hold because I felt we should save the material if it was necessary. The only place I know of, I would imagine it's still available on iTunes. I mean, if you're looking for the physical CD, I couldn't tell you.
It's all digital these days, right? So
it is. It's all digital. Although, I mean, we may still have some with our merch people. I don't really pay much attention to it. So I guess if you went on the Funny Money website, look for merch, you might be able to find one there, which is just funnymoneyband.com.
Now, a couple questions before we get out of here, because I know you've got other interviews to do today. I don't normally talk politics, but in our lifetime, this is probably the worst the nation's been in shape and the biggest election of our time. What are your thoughts on what's going on in America right now in the upcoming election?
Well, I don't know if we have enough time to answer that.
Yeah, politics style.
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in a small little town in West Virginia, all Democratic town, and that's my roots. That's in my blood. So that's pretty much the path I followed throughout my life. So I'm rooting for Obama to pull us out of this mess. I know it was a major mess I don't care who would have been president during these past 4 years. I don't think anybody could have pulled us out of this mess any better or any worse than what he's done. So I'm still pulling for him, and he's got my vote.
All right, and last question then before you get out of here. So obviously you do your vocal coaching stuff when you've got time. You've got 2 different bands you're working on. What are you into outside of music? What are you passionate about besides your family and stuff?
Right now I'm passionate about the Orioles. The Orioles are in the playoffs for the first time since 1997. So I'm a big sports fan. I love sports, and when I'm home, that's usually what I'm doing. I'm watching football or basketball or baseball. That's what I like to do. Relax.
Nice. So are you one of those fantasy sports geeks too?
No, I hate that shit.
No time for that. You just love the real.
No, I think that's bullshit. To me, that would take away from the game. You'd be rooting against your own players just to fulfill your fantasy team. I think that's horseshit. So, no, I don't get into that.
Nice. Steve Whiteman of KIX, thanks so much for taking the time. Hopefully, we're praying that we do actually get to see a new KIX album in 2013. It would be phenomenal to hear something new from you guys after all this time, but live in Baltimore.
I hope so too, and all the fans that resuscitated this band and brought us back to life, and all the hard work that we've put into it over the years. It seems like it's finally paying off, and it's such a pleasure to go to new towns and play for people again, and the reception that we're getting. It's kind of overwhelming at times. We're kind of pinching ourselves at times, going, really? This is going on? People really like us? What'd we do? So, for all those that come out and support us, we appreciate it.
Well, after grunge nearly put us into a permanent coma, everybody's starting to come back to life. And I don't know if you feel it, but that whole vibe of that classic rock sound that we grew up with, Aerosmith, AC/DC, all those bands, the sound that you originally encompassed before you got labeled a glam band, which you weren't,
right, thank you.
Has really seen a revival and is coming back, and the music is showing it. It's getting really strong again.
Yeah, absolutely, and the really strong bands from that era, are floating to the top again. I mean, we were never really considered an arena type band, but when we do these festivals, we're treated like Cinderella or any of the other big bands. So for some reason, we've earned the respect of our peers and the promoters, and it's a nice feeling.
Nice. Steve, thanks so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate all the help you guys are giving us.
Absolutely. Take care, brother. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you live. I don't know when you'll ever make it to my neck of the woods, but at least we've got the DVD now for those of us who don't get out to the West Coast very often.
There you go. We're never say never. We are trying to get out there more and more.
True. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, you too. Bye.